Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, and I'm here to do a a pitch, sort of. And this is by request by a buddy of mine, Mark Gilman, at I_Barnabas. Link in the for his channel will be in the description box. So shout out to him. He requested this. This is my pitch for a series on Dr. Sam Loomis. Obviously, this would start in London. This would start well prior to World War II. I would say this would probably start maybe in the 1920s, late 20s, maybe mid to the late 1920s, and definitely early 20s. We'd see Loomis as a kid, and Loomis would actually get caught stealing a candy bar. And you might say, well, why would he get caught stealing a candy bar? And it's real simple because when the inspector catches him, he's sort of looking at him, and Loomis is sort of smiling that he got caught, and the inspector sort of lets him go. And he goes, "You're never going to understand the criminal mind by petty theft, son. You're going to, you got to do a lot better than that." So, and what he's trying to tell him is you need to get a proper education. Stealing something, sure, it'll give you a small glimpse, but it won't give you the full frame. It won't give you the full spectrum. You need to go to school and do that. So Loomis obviously does this. And his parents are sort of mad at him that he stole a candy bar. Because here's the thing I would say. Loomis's parents do have money. They're wealthy people, so they don't need to steal. So they're very mad at him for doing this. And so he does learn something that, hey, okay, I can't just understand the criminal mind by stealing something. Yeah, sure, there are criminals who steal, but there are a lot worse criminals out there. Loomis does go to school, obviously. We would see him grow up as a kid. He would sort of, here's his parents who have money, but he watches them argue, and he's sort of trying to understand them as well, as much as the world around him. His view would be, here's my parents who are wealthy, they have money, they have good paying jobs, but they seem unhappy with one another. And Loomis actually catches his mom sleeping around and his dad, and it's like, oh wow, they really are happy. So again, I think I would have Loomis go through a lot of things that sort of shape sort of who he becomes. And I'm not saying he would be totally unhappy. There would be moments. Now, for Loomis in, let's say, college, Loomis in college going to medical school to be a psychologist or psychiatrist would be, he'd be sitting in Edinburgh, which, by the way, in London, in England, for those who don't know, medical school's only 4 years. It's not 7 like it here is in the States. There's a big difference there. So, with that being said, a cop walks in and says, whoever helps him determine this, whether this girl's insane or not, if they can prove that the girl's either insane or sane, she was of sound body and mind when she committed these murders, the student won't just get points, they'll get credit for the case. So, and it turns out the person who comes in is the very inspector who arrested Loomis for stealing the candy bar. So everybody gives the opinion this woman's crazy, batshit. Oh, of course she's crazy. They're looking for the easy way. And Loomis is looking at the actual case file. He's studying the crime scene. He's sort of being a cop in a way and trying to understand the mentality of this woman. Here's this woman who killed her entire family, who killed 5 people in one night in one home. And what convinces Loomis that she wasn't insane, she looks at the husband's wrist, and here they have marks where it looked like he was bound to the bed. And Loomis deducts, wait, this woman tied her husband up. She killed him last, not first. She tied him up so he was helpless. This was deliberate and malicious. So Loomis, with that conclusion, comes to the mind of this woman was perfectly sane when she committed these murders. And Loomis tells the inspector what he figured out, and the inspector already knew the answer. That's the thing. The inspector that walked in, he already knew that answer. He just wanted to see how good these students were. And they were all, most of them were just looking for an easy A or to get on his good side. Loomis actually looked at the file, the crime scene. He actually looked it over. He saw when they showed them the bodies. He looked at the husband's wrist, the two wrists where he was bound. He could see the marks. And so the inspector sort of smiles at him. He goes, I know you, don't I? He goes, I don't think. He goes, yeah, you were that kid I arrested when you stole that candy bar. He remembered him. And he goes, you're the only one that was right. Why do you think that is? He goes, they didn't really want to put in the effort. He goes, that's one thing. He goes, but you actually looked. You actually examined not just the crime scene, but this woman's mentality of what she was doing. And that's part of not just being a doctor of psychology, but in many ways, being a cop, being an investigator. Your job isn't just to label someone crazy or insane. You literally, what you just did is the correct way of doing things, and you should be proud of that. Loomis meets this young girl who's very mysterious, and she's a bit homeless. So she's somewhat living on the streets, stealing, and he sort of tells her what the inspector told him. And she's like, yeah, I don't have a rich mommy and daddy. She goes, how do you know I have a rich? She goes, I follow you home sometimes. He's like, you what? She goes, yeah, I follow you home sometimes there, handsome. And she's sort of agitating him. And he's shaking his head. He goes, she goes to steal something else. And it's not just food for her, it's food for other people. Loomis pays for the food. And he goes, you shouldn't have to steal food to eat. He goes, but people do. He goes, we don't all have money like the way you do. He goes, I work for my money. She goes, I know. She goes, yeah, you do, but not everyone can go and get a job. There are places that just won't hire. And he's like, and isn't a good judge of character with people. He has a great worldview. And I think that's something Loomis would have to not just judge people, but judge himself. Here's here's this guy who cannot just read serial killers, he reads people in general. And I think that's something Loomis learned to do, and that's something this series definitely would need to explain going through Loomis's life. So the people Loomis interact with, yes, some of them are of the criminal mind, but some of them aren't. And he's sort of learning through how people act and react to certain situations. He's learning, how people react to a gun, like a gunshot, how people react to someone pulling a knife. And there would be things that, again, I think they should definitely do with something like this. Obviously, I've touched on my World War II thing, what I would do with Loomis there. You guys have heard that to death, and I'm not going to repeat it. But the one thing that would happen would be he would start to date that homeless girl. And he's sort of buying her nice clothes and stuff, flowers. And she's not sure whether she's happy. She's getting, you know, stuff bought for her, or she's legitimately happy because this guy cares for her. But she sort of tells him, she goes, I'm not going to sleep with you just because you buy me stuff. He goes, that's not what I want. He goes, I just want to see you smile. I don't see you smile. I see you somber and sad. And he does see her smile eventually. And on the day she was going to kiss him, the London bombings happen. The Germans bomb London, and she dies from the bombings. And that's where Loomis joins the war, where Loomis goes in enlist. So he's sort of holding her lifeless body in his arms. Here's this woman who had this hard life, and now she's dead. And it sort of gives Loomis a sense of life and death, how easily we take life for granted at times. And maybe Loomis did to a degree at one point, and maybe this is sort of his wake up call of, hey, you can't just take life for granted because it could be taken from you at any given moment. And that's something Loomis could learn from that. Again, there are many, many things I do want a Dr. Loomis series, and I definitely think they should do it. I agree with Justin Beeb. They need to pull the trigger on this, on something like this. And I agree. He said this. It is the richest untapped vein in the Halloween franchise, and it is. I 1000% agree. So again, shout out to him as well. Um, it's something that I hope Blumhouse at least considers. If they don't, do it, at least consider doing it. It's something I'd love to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it's not very long right now. But have a great day.